Kūrybotyra.
Sveiki, mėly klausytojai, susirinkę pasiklausyti mūsų kūrybotyros tinklalaidės. Ir šiandien turime didžiulę privilegiją pristatyti mūsų svečią, kūrybiškumo tyrinėtoją, garsų kūrybiškumo trenerį David Chislett. Tai norėčiau visų atsiprašyti, kas nesuprantate angliškai, bet toliau tinklalaidę tęsime anglų kalba. O jeigu dar turėtumėte klausimų arba kažkokių tais po mūsų tinklalaidės iškilusių minčių ar komentarų, tikrai prašome jais pasidalinti. Kaip visuomet, tinklalaidę vedame dviese, aš, Augustinas ir...
Aš, Milda, ir tikrai labai nekantrauju šiandien irgi išgirsti, ką papasakos mums tikrai žinomas pasaulyje žmogus būtent kūrybiškumo tematikoje, tai patiem labai nekantru ir turbūt neriam.
All right. So, thank you, David, for joining us today in Lithuania. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I actually have prepared, I have made some notes for myself, and I have some facts about you. Mm-hmm. So, are you interested to hear what they have?
I'm nervous already.
Okay. So, in today's episode, where it's a pleasure to have a famous speaker, David Chislett, here with us. And as far as I know, David was born in Britain, raised in South Africa, and now based in Netherlands. Is it true?
This is true.
So you are still in Netherlands?
Yes.
How long you are there?
11 years.
All right. And actually you are, I could call that you kind of you have like a multicultural experience.
Yeah, I think that there's a term that was coined, I think in the 70s or the 80s, a third culture kid. It came from the American GIs who were stationed in Europe. So their kids would be born in America and then live in Europe or the other way around. And there's this thing where you basically don't really ever feel like you fit in anywhere. Mm. And now I'm in the third country and I'm in the Netherlands as well. So I've got this, like a very outsider perspective of different cultures.
So, on one hand, you are creativity expert, coach, keynote speaker. Who are you? Who are you at all?
Which face have we got today?
Yeah, which face?
I think first and foremost, I am creative. Mm. I discovered poetry at the age of 10, thanks to an English teacher, an exercise. She thought it'd be interesting to teach us how to appreciate poetry by learning how to write it. Yeah. So she taught us rhyme scheme, A, B, A, B, A, B, C. What is a sonnet? And then write the word love, each letter on a new line, and then write a line for a poem for each letter, whatever. She gave us homework to say, pick one of the 10 things I've showed you and bring it to school tomorrow. I did all 10. I was like, wow, what is this? And since then I've never really stopped. And so that's led to me being involved in so many different things. Because of the poetry, I sang and played bass in bands. Because of that, I got involved in band management promoting. And because of that, I got involved in radio broadcasting and television production. And because of that, I got involved in documentary filmmaking. And because of that, I started doing PR and marketing. And because of that, I got back into training and then speaking. So, when I was 18 and left school, I didn't know what to do with my life.
So do you feel that environment inspired your creativity?
I think that you cannot separate environment from creativity. Yeah. Your environment impacts creativity in so many different ways. And if you're not aware of it, it is something that can really limit you or even actually really stimulate you without you even really knowing why.
What about the books? You have more than 25 books on your shelf.
That I've read or that I've written?
That you've written.
Hopefully written. Yeah.
Is it up to 25? I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, I've published 3 volumes of poetry, a collection of my own short story. I edited 3 volumes of short stories by people who had never been published before, a music industry book. Yeah, a lot of stuff. I always said that I just write because I don't know how not to write. So it's not that I think I'm a famous author or that I'm a brilliant poet. I'm seriously not a brilliant poet. But I have to do something with everything that I produce. And now, thanks to the wonders of digital technology, I can do that.
Nice. What kind of digital technologies do you use, for example, in your creativity activities?
Sure. Everything I've figured out so far. So I use things like Canva to do graphic design. I have a podcast, so I use audio editing tools, video editing tools. I use YouTube. I use social media. I use AI. And analog, clunky, cut, paste stuff as well. Yeah.
And for me, just really curious, do you usually use handwriting?
No.
No?
No. Because then I can't, when I come back the next day, I can't read it.
Okay.
I should have been a doctor. Handwriting is terrible.
Okay.
Paracetamol.
Yeah. It's just a straight line with a tail at the bottom on the one end and a high piece on the end. That's paracetamol.
Okay.
Before focusing on creativity coaching, you had experience in the music business, including the rock style. Could you tell us a bit more how, all the bouncing that you've done in your career, how does it feel from the side when you look back? Is it like, do you feel normal?
We are not normal here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to try and answer that, but it's going to be a long way around. So, first of all, I don't believe that normal exists. I think normal is a concept that was basically invented at the beginning of the industrial age because everybody, in order to not lose their fingers in all the big new machines, they had to behave in a very specific way. And everything needed to be very tightly controlled.
Restricted.
Yeah, in order to generate, the same outcome over and over and over and over. And I think that became socialized so that people began to behave like they fit into boxes, but we never have. So when I look at everything that's happening now with neurodivergence and diverse thinking and diversity, equity, and inclusion and all of that, I just see that we are finally breaking the shackles of the industrial age and becoming the beings that we were supposed to be in the first place.
And finding ourselves in a different forms.
Yeah, and we're not all the same. I mean, from all of my friends who've had diagnoses or had been diagnosed as being on the autistic spectrum and having ADHD, I'm like, okay, if I ever go for that diagnosis, I know what they're going to say. But I'm okay with that because as far as I can tell, that's how I've been able to do what I've been able to do. So that's a long way of coming back to your question, Augustinas, I got out of the music industry and marketing and PR and everything because I realized I'd spent nearly 20 years putting my soul and blood and energy and sweat into other people's creative projects. And then all that poetry I've been writing since I was 10, no one had ever seen or heard. No one knew I did it. It was just tucked away in a corner somewhere. And I suddenly went, you know what? No more. This is not on. And that's when I made a big flip. And I think that was the moment when I looked back and thought, what have I actually been doing? But I'm with Dirk Gently, nothing you've ever done is wasted. Everything is connected.
Yeah.
Because of all of that work I put in on behalf of other people, I learned so much, which I was then able to apply to my own stuff, which has made a huge difference. I believe.
Yes. And that brings you here where you are, yes.
Yes.
And maybe that's would be the simple question or just similar to what we already started talking. How do you define creativity and how has your understanding of it evolved over your career?
Smarter people than me have spent longer years than me trying to define creativity and nobody agrees.
Yeah, what it is. Yeah.
It's so we know, or we kind of agree on this idea that there's a bunch of stuff, and then through the intellectual process of using your brain, you join that stuff together or break it apart to come up with something that is different, sometimes new, like unique, completely new, original, although I would argue that nothing is, and sometimes just new to you. But that what we are doing is essentially We have a collection of dots, knowledge that we have, and then we take another dot which normally doesn't belong in that group, and we go, hey, look, that's connected. That actually, wow, look at that. That works.
Something strange or... Yeah.
Would you look at that?
Yeah, the lights go on, and then, wow, everyone's like, whoa, that's amazing. How did you think of that? And I'm going, oh, well, just join the dot.
Yeah.
That's kind of my definition. What I say is the easiest way to explain creativity is to say it's a process of joining the dots.
Nice one. Nice. So the more dots you have, the more abilities and the more options, possibilities you have, or
yes,
it depends.
And so you can have an enormous amount of dots, but if they're all in one deep silo, all of your realizations will be about that deep silo, and they'll make no sense to anybody outside of it.
In different bubbles, yeah, you mean, yeah.
Right. And so who cares?
Yes.
Right? It's like if a man talks in the wood and there isn't a woman to hear him, who cares? The trick is to take a deep well of dots and relate it out to the sort of general level of dots that most people have, because that's what gives interesting insights and dynamic new interpretations of existing information. So it's not only about how many dots you have. That is important. Go collect dots. You will be happy you did. Yes. But it's also really important to collect dots outside of your comfort zone, of your expertise area, of your general day-to-day experience.
Yeah, so that's a tip, like go from that comfort area and find those new dots.
Yeah. Do you ever see that meme on social media? There's a little circle that says the comfort zone.
Oh, yeah.
And where the magic happens.
Yes.
Right? Okay, it's a meme, but it's true.
Yes.
Yeah, but there is the fear zone as well. You have to pass it. No, and
yes.
some it's a big obstacle for some people.
It is. And what's interesting about fear is that it's a kind of a fantasy, right? You're literally worrying about something that hasn't happened. It's a projection into the future. One explanation for the meaning of fear that I've read is an acronym. False evidence appearing real.
Okay.
And so when you fear something, you act on something as if it is real. But it's not. It's in the future. It's either probable, or it's possible, or it's completely unlikely. But if you act on it like it's real, it doesn't matter. To you, it's real. So that's the thing, is to realize the difference between what is probable, what is possible, what is likely, and what is totally unlikely. Because quite honestly, what's the worst that could happen if you stepped into your creative zone? You're not gonna die.
You just can get foolish of yourself.
Right. You can make a fool of yourself. People might laugh at you.
Yeah.
I have a question, David. Is it difficult to help, how to put it, like awaken creativity in other people's lives or in other people's in general, to make them believe that they can be creative? Because
they are
creatives. Yeah, because from our perspective, we spoke already with Milda, that when you introduce yourself and you say that you are doing the research or that you are investigating creativity, it sounds like a paradox, because other people would say that you do nothing, like it's about nothing.
It's not that serious.
The Greeks externalized creativity. They said it came from the gods. That's what the muses were for. It didn't come from humans. We didn't do it. It's a really interesting perspective. But I firmly believe that everybody is, in fact, creative. And some people are so firmly attached to the idea that they are not, that it is very hard to get them to change that perspective. Because it's part of their identity. This is who I am. I am a high-powered businessman. I do numbers. I do statistics. I am not creative. And then I ask them, so what do you do every day? And the answer is almost always, I solve problems. And I'm like,
here you are. Yes.
So how do you do that? Well, I need to come up with an idea. Oh, and how do you do that? That's creative. And then there's this like weird moment where they want to argue with me. And because they're generally intelligent people, if they're high-powered business people, and then they can't, because it's like,
Maybe there is the problem in a definition of the word as a creative or creativity.
Well, there is a socio-cultural construct around the idea of creativity, which is highly problematic. You have to be a genius. You have to be a weirdo, and only the privileged few can do it. And that comes back to the Industrial Revolution. Mm-hmm. All the people who really just couldn't stand on the assembly line were suspect. They couldn't be trusted. They weren't contributing. Go away. Go grow your hair, take your drugs, be weird, do other deviant stuff. And then, over time, those two things have become, in our social consciousness, have become fused. They've become one thing.
Yeah. And what do you think here about the concept of failure? Can it be reframed to encourage more like creative risk-taking in individuals and teams?
If you've had anything to do with startup land lately, you'll know that anybody in startup land seems to be more interested in failing than succeeding with their businesses. Yes. There's this whole idea of fail fast, fail forward,
Fail nights, even events, those kind of events are happening.
The extremely rude word nights, What do you learn when you do something right the first time?
Happiness.
Right. But you don't learn anything, right? It's like, oh, that works. So what do you learn?
It was easy,
Yeah. What do you learn when you fail?
You learn that this method doesn't work.
Right. And then you can try again. Mm-hmm. So Thomas Edison was famous for saying something along the lines, when someone said to him, oh, you're a genius, how did you think up this brilliant idea for a light bulb? He's like, well, actually, I thought up another 295,000 ways of not to make a light bulb before I stumbled on this one. And I think that's the part that so many people miss in this whole social construct. Woo, genius. Woo, magic. The work. I challenge you to find someone who appears to be a genius, who hasn't spent an enormous amount of time practicing their craft.
And that becomes a skill?
It's what we end up calling a skill. Yeah. When physical practice or mental practice goes from conscious to entirely unconscious behavior, this is when we start to get confused. So Lionel Messi is a football genius. Well, Lionel Messi has spent almost every day of his life since he was 5 years old on a football field. He doesn't need to think. His body knows what to do because he's done it all a million times. So he pulls off things that appear to be inhuman. And that's exactly what an artist does, what a performer does, what an inventor does, what a scientist does, because they are immersed in their craft, in their knowledge, and in their skill. And it's really difficult to separate all of those things out. So if you want to be any kind of a high-end creative, you have one choice and one choice only. 10,000 hours.
Mm. What about the thing that creativity decreases over the time? And I've seen the research when, really young children, like 5 to 8 probably years old.
Yeah, the NASA study.
Yeah, so they are the most creative human beings on Earth. What happens, during our lifetimes that we lose the creativity? Is it bullying? Is it like
school?
The system?
School? Yeah.
We go to school. How do you pass school? You get the answers right.
Right.
So there's a wrong answer. It's right, wrong, black, white. It's all very blocky. And so you're taught that failure is bad. You're taught that there is a right answer, and it's a very binary way of looking at the world. It's extremely polarized. And, what creators are able to do, whether they're scientists or artists, is exist in this like weird gray space where the answer isn't obvious. And instead of freaking out about that, they kind of swim around in it, splashing and grabbing onto things until an answer emerges over time. Now, can you imagine saying that to your CEO about how you're trying to sort out this technical problem?
Yeah.
But in essence, that is what you're doing. You're investigating, you're researching, you're experimenting, you're testing, you're asking people, you're thinking of ideas, you're trying them out. All of that is swimming in the gray until the answer emerges. You don't tell the boss that. You just say, hey, I figured it out. Click.
Yeah.
But the truth is stranger than just that.
It's kind of paradox that during the school years, they try to put you in a box, and then you start your career where they say, then now think outside the box.
Yes.
And do something creative, yeah.
But that's recent,
yeah.
right? And now now that AI and algorithms and automation and robots are threatening so many jobs, now's the time that we have got to lean into this to the max, because this is our USP. This is our unique selling point. This is what we've got, that it's possible that AI will never truly have. AI can be creative. It can join the dots, but it can't decide to be creative. You have to tell it to be, whereas you and I can.
Yet.
Well, then you're starting to talk about general AI, which is a fully conscious, sentient being. And then the conversation changes entirely. It's not about whether AI is, it's whether another sentient being is.
Okay.
Yeah, tricky one.
Well, the question is, do we want that to happen?
Yes. And how would you suggest measuring or evaluating the effectiveness of the creativity development practices? For example, if I am using some kind of practices to gain my creativity, am I more creative today than I was yesterday?
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of tools?
10,000 hours.
Yeah, but that's like, whatever. Because the 10,000 hours, you've also got to be focused on improving. If you just do 10,000 hours of the same thing badly, that's not going to help. But the best thing to do, and this is something I also do in my workshops, is before the session starts, I say to people, what do you want to see? What change are you expecting? How would you understand that you've gotten better? So if you're talking about your own personal creativity, that would be, for me, the most important thing to say. It's like, well, okay, so I want to get in better contact with my creativity so I can be more creative. What would that look like? Because most of the time, people got a very specific idea. They want to write, they want to paint, they want to invent something, they want to start a new business, they want to, change the world. And if they concretize that, if they put it down in writing, if they say it, put it in words, then you've got a reference point that you can track. Well, I was here when that was just a dream. And you can see whether you're getting closer or not by the outcomes, the physical different things that you've generated or experienced after your learning experience. So it's really important to do that before you get into anything. Benchmark where you are, and then project an idea of what being better at that would mean. There's a good chance that ultimately you won't get there, you'll get somewhere else. But if you don't do that, you won't be aware of the change.
So like internal compass.
Yeah.
Going back to the artificial intelligence topic and to your thought about the Industrial Revolution, we have some problems in the world like climate change. And myself, actually, I believe that artificial intelligence might help to solve, the problems like microplastics, like climate change, and probably other big problems as well. But on the other hand, we are afraid. On one hand, we are afraid of the artificial intelligence, but on the other hand, I would say that the artificial intelligence is the product of the Industrial Revolution.
Yes, we finally invented a machine which can do the work that we've been trying to behave like machines to do. So I agree with you. It's a totally logical endpoint. And so what we should be doing is now allowing the AI to do the work, to behave like a machine, instead of making fake news videos and deep fakes and all the other stuff. Our priorities just seem so wrong. Everyone's using AI to make art.
Yeah.
When we should be using
that was
AI
my next
to fix
question.
problems.
That was my next question. Like, why the hell people are creating the music with AI? Why they are taking those, jobs or tasks that probably could help us to feel more creative, Why don't we use it to solve the problems? Maybe it's a normal stage where people should be aware of, about creating the videos, animations, doing the music. Why don't we try to solve all the problems which are much more important than, drawing the picture?
I think there's a lot of stuff going on there. I think on the first level is disempowerment. I think your average human being feels, we are so far away from the levers of power, being able to make an actual difference. And we are so aware of how high the barrier is to entry on so many things. You have to, 10,000 hours, you have to study, you have to do lots of practice. And here comes this device which allows you to do amazing stuff at the click of a few buttons. It's incredibly empowering. And I think we are enormously distracted by that because of how disempowered we are, because of how victimized we've been, how exploited. And I'm talking about even privileged white people in the Western world, right? We are all slaves to this enormous machine, which has made a very few men have more money than has ever been seen in the history of humankind. There's 5 guys on this planet who've got more money than the rest of the planet put together. That's insane. It's obscene.
Now it's scary.
Right. AI can fix all of that. But at the moment, we're a bit distracted by all the sort of rah-rah. But I do believe that a reset moment will come. Right now, it's new, it's fantastic, it's entertaining. We're like, woohoo, look at shiny, shiny. I'm really hoping that we will pass through that sort of adolescent phase and come to a more mature place where we actually go, well, you know what? I mean, they're using AI to help surgeons because it's so much better at pattern recognition because it doesn't have emotions. It doesn't get distracted. It doesn't have...
No stress.
Right. The stress. It doesn't have bias. It doesn't assume because you're this color or this age, you must have this condition. It just goes on the facts. And therefore, it's much better at tasks which are extremely well defined, which have very strong borders, like brain surgery. But it would make it a terrible waiter where the borders are too ill-defined. They're too vague. They're too permeable. So that should start to become obvious to people. And that hopefully will lead us to believe that what we should be doing is not making deepfake videos, not making music on Spotify, but rather saying, you go and figure out how to decompose all of that microplastic in the ocean, please, Mr. AI, and help us to transform to clean energy while we make fantastic art and think of the next wonderful invention and figure out how we actually are going to get to Mars without billionaires and so on. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It takes time, I think,
Yeah.
If you could implement, let's say, one policy or kind of a change in education system, what would it be? Maybe there is already, for example, in Finland, I'm not sure, but
somewhere else.
Yeah, somewhere else. But maybe you've seen a good example, or maybe you have one.
Yeah, I've read about stuff, but I can't independently verify it. But I am seeing already with teachers that I know that they're beginning to realize that standardized testing and insisting that this is the only way you can be considered educated, people are beginning to realize that it's problematic. What's happening at universities is that they spend more time using anti-AI checking algorithms than actually checking essays. And so what they're starting to talk about at university is, well, maybe actually essays and exams aren't the best way to measure how well this person knows their stuff. It's like, oh, hallelujah. Have we finally realized this, So, well, what do you do next? And especially for universities, that's challenging, right? Because university's always been about, can you prove that you know the theory by basically telling me?
The same facts.
Right. But then when you go to the job, the boss is like, God, another graduate doesn't know what to do. Yeah. And so maybe the whole concept of that high-level education needs to change into, indeed, finding, more hands-on, less theory, because it's in your pocket. We've got more computing power in our pockets than put man on the moon in the 60s. I mean, it's insane. and now we're not going to use it to do what it's made to do, but we want it to make
it's bizarre.
It's weird, right? It's real cognitive dissonance when you think about it.
And one maybe to another topic, switch a bit this conversation. What role do you believe intuition plays in creative processes?
Yeah, intuition.
Yeah, intuition's an interesting one because there's been a lot of research into it, and there's a lot of quite boring, practical explanations for intuition. But again, this is something that AI, as far as we can tell, doesn't have and doesn't know what to do. Yeah. So I think I mean, I don't think it really matters what is really going on with intuition. I think the fact that we have it and we act on it is the interesting thing.
And we trust it.
That we trust it, because quite often it's intuition that allows us to leap out of the comfort zone into a magical place. It's just like this gut feeling. There's something else out there, and I'm gonna, I like Indiana Jones, right? When he steps into the and there's actually a step there, like, oh, he had intuition. Oh, don't do this at home, folks. So I think intuition is one of these hyper-rational characteristics that we have as beings that we need to be leaning into more. And again, it's something else that we're shamed out of, that we're like, what? You can't account exactly for what you did? Not allowed. Stop it at once.
But I would probably wouldn't agree totally, because in Lithuanian language, we don't have, the expression like gut feeling. We translate it like intuition.
Yeah.
And for me, gut feeling, it's somewhere around your belly. And intuition, it's like a mentality thing. It's around like your head. So I would say, having the gut feeling in English language, for me, it makes even more sense.
Intuition, from the Latin root almost. Well, this is where it gets super interesting, right? Because in so many different language groupings, the way we talk about instinctive behavior is different. But I think on the same level, what they're meaning is the stuff that can't be tracked literally back to an actual thought or an actual fact, and that you're doing something on faith.
So have you done any research or tried to compare other cultures, religions, languages on the creativity topic? How does this, all those things affect creativity?
And influence.
Yeah. I personally have not done any research. I'm not a
but maybe you just
good academic.
But in a way.
Well, it reminds me of what conspiracy theorists talk about being research and what academics mean, right? So I mean research in the academic sense, right?
Nowadays we can create synthetic data with AI.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, I think there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, stories from different places in the world which show that, like the example of the ancient Greeks, right? Their relationship to creativity is fundamentally different to the way Western, European, loosely people think about creativity, right? It's something we do, whereas the Greeks actually thought it was something
from
above.
Yeah.
But there is a fascinating book which talks about the idea that actually creativity happens outside the brain, and that your environment is actually so important that without it you can't be creative. Which also goes back to a piece of research done by a gentleman called Mel Rhodes in the 60s, where he came up with this notion of the 4 Ps of creativity. He said, in order for creativity to exist, you must have a creative person, a product, a process, and a P for press, because environment doesn't start with a P, but he means everything that presses down on you. And so if you think about it, the result of any creativity is a product, which has to have a person doing it, has to have a sentient intelligence doing it. And the way you do it is by following a process.
Yes.
And the process you choose, the way you do it, whether it's a in your head instinct or a gut feel instinct or whatever it is influenced by your environment. How rich you are, how educated you are, what color you are, whether you're a slave, whether you're an office worker. These things have such a massive influence on your creativity that it's actually almost invisible, if that makes sense. It's such a huge factor that you don't see it. It's too big.
So would you advise to shape your environment in order to become even more and more creative?
So here's a great one for you. Where do a lot of people get their very best ideas?
In the shower.
In the shower. Now, how many people have you ever met who've got a whiteboard on the wall of the shower?
No one, actually.
No one?
Yeah.
Why not? I mean,
because
it's
washed away then. No.
Maybe not a whiteboard.
You have to use the permanent marker.
Yeah, some of you can. Why not? That's controlling your environment to maximize your creative. And you can change your friends. You can move to a different city. I mean, think about the great art movements of the 19th and early 20th century, they were all centered around a place. Vienna, Paris.
Yeah.
Why? Because that place, from the laws or the mayor or what have you, created space for people to be deviant. And so deviants congregated. And then they fought with each other, and they loved each other, and they did all sorts of things with each other. And out of that, they pushed and stretched and pulled at the fabric of what was possible and expanded it. So if you wanted to be creative in the early 20th century, you went to Paris. Where would you go today?
Today, probably I would choose some abandoned place to get out of this, notification world.
This is very interesting. I love that you said that, because, now this 24/7 always on culture, no one's ever bored. No one's ever got downtime. You're in this sort of like rational, conscious,
and active,
do all the time. So there is absolutely no time for reflection.
And disturbing every time.
Yeah,
that's it. So it's constant interruptions, constant stimulation. There is no time to absorb, to reflect, to join the dots, and then to do. Because you're always kind of doing this kind of performative doing, liking, checking, scrolling, going through these tasks, and there's no room left over for the deep absorbing, assimilation, processing, and then putting out.
Yeah.
So weirdly enough, I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the wrong answer for humanity, but I totally get why you're saying that, because it'll give you the time to process all of the stuff that you've been falling on you for the last, 15, nearly 20 years now?
If we start off first, if we say that, first appearance of the smartphone in 2008.
Social media a few years before that.
Yeah, 2005 with the first steps in Facebook.
Yeah. So it's 20 years.
20 years already.
We digest more information in one day than people at the beginning of the 20th century digested in their entire life.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane.
Yes.
It's not physically possible. So, detox, get away.
Get lost somewhere without GPS or something.
But the trouble is, if you stay there too long, you'll burn your way through your supply of dots. And you'll have to come back.
Yeah, you have to. Human beings are...
It's a bit like recharge needed time to time, and then...
Yeah, we are social, Homo sapiens is a social species.
Yeah.
We need to socialize.
Yeah. So, what other thing do highly creative people do, according to the myth? They take drugs.
Yeah.
Now, think about what a drug does to you.
Change the perspective.
Right. And it puts you in a bubble of your own experience for a while. And then you come down and you come around and you re-enter society.
Yeah.
But at regular intervals, you're disappearing off into magic fantasy land, completely isolated from all the stimulus. And you think, well, it's not surprising, because highly creative people are often highly sensitive people. So in order to medicate, instead of going to a desert island like Augustinas wants to do, they go to a desert island in their brains by taking drugs.
David, let's have a hypothetical situation. Let's say this is your last day in your life.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Okay, but really, really sad, and you would definitely know that there will be no tomorrow. But you have a chance to give an advice or spread the words, and all the world is listening, and you have a moment. What would you say?
Wow.
No pressure.
What I'm realizing is that creativity is not a thing, it's a process. And so you always have to be engaged in process. And even when you have finished a thing, don't mistake that for being the end of the process. Because a process is easy. It's just step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4 to step 5. But the beauty of the creative process is that when you take step 1, you have no idea where step 5 is or where it's going to take you. And that's how it should be. But if you don't take step 1, you'll never get to step 5. So step into process, start, and the rest will emerge. So don't be so afraid of your own dreams, your own ambitions, your own fears, that you never take the first step. Because in taking the first step, the destination changes, and the ambitions and even the fears will start to go away. But if you don't start, you'll never know.
Yeah, and probably enjoy the process, yeah.
Well, that helps an awful lot.
Yeah.
Have some fun while you're doing it.
Yeah. And every time at the end of our conversation, we share tips that help us personally to gain creativity in everyday's life. So could you share from your experience, what do you do?
A method.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's taken me a long time to realize that what I do is a method.
Yeah.
So essentially, I have a very long arc where I'm mega productive for up to, I think the longest arc has ever been 18 months. The shortest probably about 3, which is then followed by anywhere from a month to a year of not really outputting anything creativity. And what I've realized is that my method is absorb, experience, learn, and then boom, out, and then again and again and again and again. So it looks like I have periods where I'm creative and then when I'm not. But what I've realized is that this is the waveform of my creativity, is that I do go to a desert island effectively.
Yeah.
I for me in Kaunas, I'm spending the whole day tomorrow giving lectures. Today, I have slept. I have watched a movie on Netflix. I have walked Kaunas flat. And I haven't made a phone call or checked my email. I've just been observing.
Yes.
I've just been thinking. I've just been looking. I've just been going, what's going on here? Wow, that's interesting. And not worrying about what I'm going to do with it.
Yes.
Because it'll come. I know it'll come. I don't have to worry about it. I now have complete faith in my cycle. Because I know I will come back tomorrow. I will come back next week. I can start something. I cannot finish it because I know I'll be back. And I've learned to trust that. And that would be my advice. Try and figure out what your process is, your method is, and learn to trust it.
And,
really nice one.
And when you expose yourself to the world and inhale the surroundings, do you make notes?
Sometimes not. It's a bit annoying. I often have my best ideas in the shower where there is no whiteboard or when I'm running, when I don't have a pen or a phone or what have you. I take voice notes. I speak my ideas out. If I have a really good line in my head when I'm running, I just repeat it over and over and over and over. And as soon as I get home, I write it down.
Yes.
Okay.
But the exact expression of a lot of ideas I've just lost because I wasn't in a position to hang on to it. But I have faith that comes back. Because if I look at my body of work, I'm clearly obsessed with the same themes. It's all the same stuff, actually, over and over. So it'll come out in the wash.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you, David. We want to talk with you probably not 1 hour, but probably 3, 5, or all day. Actually, creativity is the topic that it's endless, bottomless. Say.
That's the point, right? It's making more.
Yeah, but thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate you having you here, and I hope that this is not the last time that we will meet.
Awesome.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, and it was really nice to hear you, and hope everybody will take your notes into their heads and use those activities in their everyday life.
Thank you. It's been awesome to be here. Awesome questions. Thank you so much. And till the next time.
Great.
Nice.
Great. Right. Thank you. Tai čia mūsų tinklalaidė buvo šiandien Milda ir
Augustinas.
Ir turėjome puikų kūrybiškumo tyrinėtoją, trenerį, spikerį Davidą Chislettą.
Tikėkime, kad ir jums tai labai patiko ir lauksim atsiliepimo, ar tokių svečių norėtumėte ir ateityje.
Ačiū visiems ir gražios dienos.
Viso.
Iki.
Kūrybotyra.